Mula rito sa PTB4 Headquarters, Quezon City, kasama ang isa sa mga nangungunang broadcast journalist sa bansa, Ceasar Soriano. Tunghayan ang isang oras na paglalakbay sa Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Pagkilala sa mayamang kultura at tradisyon sa iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas. Samahan siya sa pagtuklas sa mga natatanging yaman ng bansa, kasabay ng pagbibigay ng mga mahalagang impormasyon para sa sambayanang Pilipino. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas!
Magandang Gabi Pilipinas! Ako po si Ceasar Soriano, nagbibigay-pugay sa mga Pilipino sa lahat ng sulok ng mundo. Samahan ninyo ako sa isang oras na pagtalakay sa mga mahalagang issue sa ating lipunan at sa mga kwentong sumasalamin sa ating pagka-Pilipino. Sa pagitan ng ngayon at bukas, hindi kailanman maaaring maiwaksi ang bakas ng kasaysayang patuloy pa ring humuhubog sa pag-ikot ng kasalukuyan. Ano man ang naidulot ng kahapon, nananatiling aral at inspirasyon sa mga taong nabubuhay sa kasalukuyang panahon. Sa bayan ng Giwan sa lalawigan ng Eastern Samar, saksi ang ilan sa mga isla nito sa kapwa madilim at makulay nitong kasaysayan na nagbigay daan sa tunay na kahulugan ng kabutihan sa mga panahong sinubok ng pagkakataon.
Tenoster, quies in chalice, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo.
Ika-17 ng Marso taong 1521, lulan ng barkong Trinidad. Narating ng Portuguese explorer na si Ferdinand Magellan at ng kanyang mga tauhan ang isang isla na kilala noon sa tawag na Humumo. Ito ngayon ay ang isla ng Humonhon na matatagpuan sa bayan ng Giwan, Eastern Samar.
Yung island ng Humonhon was believed to be the residence of the god Makatapag. So during the pre-Hispanic times, walang tao doon kasi takot sila mag-stay doon. In fact, 100 years after Magellan landed in Humonhon, walang nag-reside doon.
Subalit nagbago ang paniniwalang ito nang ang hindi inaasahang pangyayari ay naging isang malaking kabanata sa kasaysayan ng bansa, maging ng buong mundo.
Ang historical significance ng Humonhon ay nakafocus sa the first Mass in the Philippines celebrated by Father Pedro Valderrama. And then that was on March 17, 1521. And the following day, the people from Humonhon encountered the expedition of Magellan.
Sa pamamagitan ng sociological method, masusing inaral ng scholar at historian na si Reverend Monsignor Lope Robredillo ang bahaging ito ng kasaysayan na nailahad sa kanyang aklat na Humonhon Island, the correct site of the first Mass in the Philippines.
When we ask the question about what is man, what is salvation, and then kung ano ang implications niyan, makikita mo na doon talaga ginawa ang first Mass.
Pagbibigay diin pa ni Monsignor Robredillo?
At saka kung titingnan mo ang mentality noon, hindi pwede na walang misa. And added to that, ang mentality Magellan. Si Magellan was so religious. Sa kanyang will, makikita mo na nag-provide siya ng, after his death, dapat may 60 masses para sa kanya. Maraming prayers na hiningi niya sa mga monasteries and many other things. So, kung si Magellan ay so religious, hindi pwede na pababayaan niya na hindi magbimisa. And add to that, on March 17 was Passion Sunday. So, hindi pwede na hindi magbimisa. And then the following Sunday, Palm Sunday, nandoon pa rin sila. And then Feast of St. Joseph, Feast ng Annunciation, nandoon sila sa Humunhon. Hindi pwede na hindi magbimisa.
Ang pagdaraos ng kauna-unahang misa sa isla ng Humunhon sa bayan ng Giwan sa lalawigan ng Eastern Samar ay isa sa mga mahahalagang pangyayari na ipinagmamalaki ng ama ng lalawigang ito na si Governor Ben Evardone.
Natutuwa kami na the birth of Christianity started in our country, started in our province, in Humunhon. No? Siguro ngayon kung gaano na lang kami mga relihiyoso sa Eastern Samar. No? Sana nga hindi mawala ito yung natin pananalig sa Diyos.
Subalit hindi lamang ang pagkakaroon ng kauna-unahang misa sa isla ng Humunhon ang tumatak sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. Dahil kasabay nito, nagmarka ng gusto ang buong galak na pagtanggap at buong pusong pagtulong ng mga sinaunang Giwananon sa banyagang si Ferdinand Magellan at sa hukbo nito.
What they offered, what the Suluanons or the early Giwananons offered to the first circumnavigators were food and friendship and hospitality.
Sa puntong ito, mapapatunayan na ang tinatawag na first landing ni Ferdinand Magellan ay naganap mismo sa isla ng Humunhon. Ito ay batay na rin sa pananaliksik ng historian na tubong Giwan na si Kina Kwan.
If we look at history, wala pang European ang nakakatawid ng Pacific Ocean. So hindi nila alam kung ano yung gano'ng kalawak ito. Sina Magellan ang nakatawid doon. In fact, sila na ang nagpangalan ng Pacific Ocean because it was calm down. So they traversed the Pacific Ocean for 100 days. And because they lost their supplies, wala na silang supply at hindi nila alam na ganun pala katagal yung biyahe, they suffered from sickness, from hunger, from death.
Sa kanilang patuloy na paglalayag sa karagatang Pasipiko, narating nila ang isla ng Guam. Ngunit sila ay napalaban sa mga katutubong nananahan doon. At sa paglipas ng panahon, mas tumindi ang kanilang pagod at gutom na nagbunga sa pagkakasakit at pagkamatay ng marami sa kanila.
A few days later, they came upon this, they sighted the island of Samar. And then when they saw the island of Samar, that's on March 16, 1521, and then they couldn't dock, they couldn't go to land because it was very difficult kasi maraming corals. So they had to move to another island which is called Suluan. And then Suluan though, hindi na sila nagland because may mga nakita silang tattooed natives. So para sa kanila parang o baka maulit siguro yung episode in Guam, so let's be careful. So they did an anchorage. So they anchored off the coast of Suluan on March 16. And then the following day, they found an uninhabited island. So Pigafetta recorded it as uninhabited island or walang tao.
Ang islang tinutukoy dito ay ang Humunhon na pinaniniwalaang tahanan ng kinikilalang Panginoon na mga Bisaya na si Makapatag. Ito na mismo ang dahilan kung bakit walang nangahas na manirahan sa islang ito.
Upon landing, sila ay nakapagpahinga. On March 18, may mga natives or Filipino ancestors galing sa Suluan Island. Dahil nga diba nakita sila sa Suluan, so sabi nila, uy, merong bisita tayo. So puntahan natin. So they went to Humunhon.
Ayon na rin sa Italian chronicler ni Ferdinand Magellan na si Antonio Pigafetta, natakot ang hukbo ni Magellan nang matuklasan nilang may paparating na mga katutubo. Dito na nagpasya si Magellan na siya lamang ang tanging haharap sa mga ito. At nang ito ang mangyari,
but they were surprised because when the natives approached them, they welcomed them with joy. So natuwa yung mga natives na nandyan ang mga bisita nila. And then they offered food, fish, coconuts, And then nag-promise pa yung mga natives na we'll be back in 4 days, we'll bring more food.
Ngunit higit pa sa mga pagkain at iba pang mga bagay na inihandog ng mga katutubong Giwananon ay ang kanilang pagtanggap at pagtulong sa dayuhang sina Magellan na nagbigay ng tunay na kahulugan ng pakikipagkapwa-tao.
It revived their spirit. Diba? Yung kanilang ambition to fulfill their mission. So nabuhayan sila ng loob.
Sa pamamagitan ng tinatawag na circumnavigation of the world, bunsod ng Magellan-Elcano Expedition ng bansang Espanya, nangyari ang tinatawag na first landing ni Magellan sa isla ng Humonhon at naidaos ang unang misa sa Pilipinas sa isla ring ito.
Some historians would say that if they were not warmly welcomed in Humonhon, because they were very, very tired and almost they were losing hope, they said na baka hindi natapos yung first circumnavigation. So this is the role or the significance of Humonhon Island to the story of the first circumnavigation of the world.
Ito rin mismo ang sinangayunan at pinagmamalaki ng ina ng bayan ng Giwan na si Mayor Annalisa Kwan.
Had it not been for the people of Giwan, the people of Siloan here in Giwan, they could have all died. And they will not be able to go back to Spain to tell the whole world that we are the first navigators of the world.
Kung tutuusin, maliit na bagay lamang ang pinakita at pinadamang pakikipagkapwa-tao sa dayuhang sina Magellan dahil sadyang matulungin ang mga sinaunang Giwananon kahit na kilala sila sa pagiging matapang at walang inuurungan.
Sabi nila, ang mga waray-waray, matatapang kami. Truly, kasi kung hindi matatapang ang mga taga-ang mga waray, they wouldn't get near Magellan and his crew. Why? They were tall people with white skin. And then, itong ating mga Pilipino, maliliit.
So yun talagang ang innate katangian, yung katangian ng mga waray-waray. Firm pero malambot ang puso.
Mahigit 5 siglo na ang nakalilipas. Ang isla ng Humonhon ay nananatili pa ring isang payak na pulo na nagsisilbing payapang tahanan sa humigit kumulang 4,500 katao sa 8 barangay nito. Kabilang na rito ang pamilya Magalona na sa pangingisda nakasalalay ang hanapbuhay ng kanilang padre de pamilya.
Yung anak ko nakakapag-aral, yung anak ko ng isa yung nasa Giwa nag-aaral sa private. Yun ang ginagastos namin, yung ng asawa ko. Tapos itong dalawa may grade 8 dito sa National High School, Kasuguran. Tapos itong isa ko sa elementary, dito sa nag-aaral silang 3.
Sa mayamang karagatang nakapalibot sa isla ng Humonhon, humuhuli ng yamang dagat ang kabiyak ni Aling Roselyn.
Pag siya, kikitang yung panagat niya, nahuhuli niya isda. Pag isang pag-araw naman, yung nahuli niya, pugita at saka kulabutan. Paggabi, yung mga isda na mamadaas.
Sa hindi kalayuan mula sa tahanan ng pamilya Magalona, matatagpuan ang 2 hektaryang taniman ni Mang Epifanio Gagarino. Sa kabila ng edad niyang 72, nakapagtatanim pa rin siya rito ng iba't ibang prutas at gulay.
Kuha niya bilanghoy, lubi, nyog, o saging, o mga gaway, kanipis, palay. Oo, sa lakot lang, may mga gulay yun, balatong, okra. May matanim ko naman na bagong okra.
Nito lamang ika-17 ng Marso taong 2021, ipinagdiwang ang quincentenary o ika-500 taon ng first landing ni Ferdinand Magellan sa Pilipinas sa pangunguna ng lokal na pamahalaan at mga pambansang ahensya at dinaluhan ng Spanish Ambassador to the Philippines na si Jorge Moragas.
He was here after stopover and they anchored in Suluan the day before, but they anchor again here in Humonhon, which was an inhabited island, as everybody knows. And that day, it was the first human touch, human contact. In that fact, in that way, I think there was the real arrival took place in this very island just 500 years ago.
The significance of this day will enable the island to invest in her rich culture and history, one that honors the sacred ground we are all standing on.
Sa gitna ng matitinding hamon at hindi inaasahang pagkakataon, hinihele ng bawat alo ng grupo ng mga banyaga patungo sa isla ng Humonhon.
From 500 years ago until now, we still have that heritage of kindness and humanity. Doon natin makikita, isa sa mga big historical events, makikita natin ito sa Humonhon episode.
Sa kabila ng mga hirap at pinagdaanan sa lawak ng karagatan, inihaplos ng bawat agos ang unti-unting paglayag patungo sa pansamantalang tahanang nagparamdam ng tunay na kabutihan.
The heritage of kindness of the Giwananons, the heritage of hospitality, yun ang ipagmamalaki namin because that time pinakita na namin. Kaya known ang Giwan for that, and up to now we have that.
Meron palang ibang story na pwede ibigay sa mga tao ang Eastern Samar na hindi about violence but about spirituality.
What was once feared as the land of God, makapatag, and known as the island of the dead, gave life to dying and weary spirits of Western explorers. While in this land where men feared to tread, they found a home called the island of Humonhon. And this home became an eventual witness to the birth of Christianity in the country, as things are believed to have happened for a reason. All this series of events happened in the name of the Father.
Quies in chalice, sanctificetur nomen.
Magandang Gabi Pilipinas. Magandang Gabi Pilipinas.
Ikawalo ng Disyembre taong 1941, 10 oras makaraang bombahin ang Pearl Harbor. Biglaang binomba ng mga hukbo ng bansang Hapon ng Pilipinas at saka nilusob ang timog at hilagang bahagi ng Maynila. Dito na sumiklab sa bansa ang pangalawang digmaang pandaigdig. Sa ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig sa pagitan ng Hapon at Estados Unidos, natalo at napaatras ng hukbo ng mga Hapon ang puwersa ng mga Amerikano sa bansa. Sa ilalim ng pananakop ng bansang Hapon sa loob ng mahigit 3 taon, mahigit 20,000 Pilipinong sundalo ang nasawi at mahigit 200,000 sibilyan ang namatay dahil sa sakit at gutom at dahil nadamay sa giyera.
The Americans were expelled from the Philippines when they lost to the Japanese. They vowed to return.
I said to the people of the Philippines whence I came, I shall return.
And return he did on the 20th of October 1944.
When they were planning their return to the Philippines, they planned an attack in Leyte. So that's the middle part of the Philippines, and they called it the invasion of Leyte.
Subalit ang pagbabalik na ito ni General Douglas MacArthur ay hindi naging madali para sa hukbo ng mga Amerikano. Bago makarating ang Amerikanong general sa lalawigan ng Leyte at mabawi ito mula sa puwersa ng mga Hapon, kinailangan muna nilang magsagawa ng pag-atake sa isla ng Suluan upang dito maibaling ang pansin ng mga kalaban.
They went to Suluan, raided Suluan, so General MacArthur could come in peacefully. So they were able to kill Japanese soldiers in Suluan Island, therefore paving way for General MacArthur and his fleet to come in and successfully reclaim or get back again Leyte.
Ang pag-atake sa Suluan o ang tinatawag na Suluan Raid noong ika-17 ng Oktubre, taong 1944 ay taunang ginugunita ng lokal na pamahalaan ng Giwan kung saan matatagpuan ang isla ng Suluan.
The annual celebration of the Suluan Raid is special because we value each race different contributions to our fight to achieve our independence. We have seen the cooperation of every Filipino who have not bowed to foreign invaders.
Samantala ang ginawang paglusob ng puwersa ng mga Amerikano sa hukbo ng mga Hapon sa isla ng Suluan ang siyang unang hakbang sa muli nilang pakikipagdigmaan.
That's the start of the Battle for Leyte or Battle of Leyte Gulf. So that's the biggest naval battle in World War II.
Matapos mabawi ang lalawigan ng Leyte mula sa hukbo ng mga Hapon, may panibagong plano si General MacArthur.
General MacArthur wanted a base of operations. So sabi niya, so now that we have captured Leyte, we need a base of operations to launch attacks on other places so we could, fully recover the Philippines against the Japanese.
Sa kagustuhang magkaroon kaagad ng Naval Air Base ang puwersa ng mga Amerikano sa bandang Visayas, agad-agad silang nagpahanap ng maayos na lugar na pagtatayuan ito.
They went around, they surveyed the area, but they couldn't find a suitable place for their base of operations.
Nauna rito ang baybayin ng San Pablo Bay sa lalawigan ng Samar, ngunit hindi natuloy ang pagpapatayo ng Naval Air Base dito dahil hindi akma ang lugar sa tuwing may malakas na ulan. Hindi nagtagal, natuntun ng puwersa ng mga Amerikano ang katimugang bahagi ng lalawigan ng Eastern Samar.
There's this small town at the edge of the Pacific. And it has a perfect landscape dahil siya ay corals. So we don't need materials, we already have the corals, magagamit natin.
At ang lugar na tinutukoy dito ay ang bayan ng Giwan.
So they decided to build one of the biggest naval bases in the Far East during that time in Giwan, Eastern Samar.
Itinayo ang Naval Air Base na ito ng United States Naval Construction Battalions na mas kilala sa tawag na Seabees na mula sa 61st at 93rd Naval Construction Battalions mula Nobyembre hanggang Disyembre taong 1944.
The island of Tobabao, of Manicani, of Calikuan Island, so lahat yon, including even some parts of the mainland, were transformed into US Naval Base 3149. So yun yung code, 3149.
Giwan was the US naval base during the Second World War. Again, we showed our hospitality. Our people also was very friendly to them, Again, yung aming heritage of kindness.
Dahil sa ginawang Naval Air Base ng puwersa ng mga Amerikano sa bayan ng Giwan, ito na ang nagsilbing launch pad o pinanggagalingan ng iba't ibang sandatang panghimpapawid na siyang nagpasabog ng mga bomba sa Maynila at Formosa.
During the Battle of Manila, the American troops bombed Intramuros, to yun na yung parang endpoint na nung mga Hapon.
Ikatlo ng Setyembre, taong 1955, tuluyan ng sumuko ang hukbo ng mga Hapon at dito na nakamit ang tinatawag na The Liberation of the Philippines. Halos 8 dekada na ang nakaraan, ang kalayaang natamo ng Pilipinas ay siya ring kalayaang tinatamasa ngayon ng mga taga-isla ng Calikuan. Lalo na't malaya silang nakikipaglaro sa alon ng kanilang karagatan. Bagamat minsang naging kalaban ng Pilipinas ang mga Hapon noong pangalawang digmaang pandaigdig, isang Hapon ang naging kaibigan ng mga taga-Calikuan nang matuklasan ang mga magagandang alon sa islang ito.
Ang nakadiscover dito is Japanese. Tapos dati bumili na rin ng lupa dito. Tapos kami yung nagbabantay ng bahay. Doon nagsusurf na kami dito araw-araw.
Yung mga turista na galing Maynila or yung mga galing ibang bansa na gustong yan po yung madalas na nagpupunta dito.
Yung mga kaibigan namin from Ormoc, Cebu, Tacloban, Manila, minsan taga Davao, Burungan, Siargao.
The local government unit of Giwan, we are creating activities that will enhance movement of people, di ba? Para magkaroon na dito ng maraming tao.
Tourism is gradually increasing. We just hosted the Surf City in Bronx City. We also hosted another surf circuit in Kalikuan. Palagi ko, we are inching our way to develop the tourism industry in our province.
I am very hopeful that after this pandemic, something bright will happen to Giwan.
Anumang tinatamasang katanyagan ng isla ng Kalikuan sa larangan ng surfing, hindi rin maitatangging ito ay dahil sa isang Australianong nagsulong ito.
Discover yung alon dito nang dahil sa mag-asawang tumira dito na galing Australia po. So, nag-start sila nag-visit dito tapos nakita nila na may surfing spot dito na maganda yung alon. So, diyan po nagsimula yung kasi parang sila yung nagpa-umpisa. Sila yung unang naglaro dito.
Minsan na ring nakapanayam ng aming production team sa programang Unlad Pilipinas noong 2019 ang tinutukoy na Australianong tumulong sa pagsulong ng surfing sa isla ng Kalikuan.
He's the one who started the local now to surf on Giwan. Yeah, nobody surfs here when we come here.
Subalit pumanaw na ang banyagang napamahal sa isla ng Kalikuan dahil sa hindi matukoy na karamdaman noong buwan ng Hulyo nito lamang 2021. Ito na rin mismo ang kinumpirma ng kanyang Pilipinang kabiyak.
It's sad because it's been a long time.
Pumanaw man at tuluyan ng lumisan, nanatili pa ring buhay na buhay ang ambag at alaala ni Rodney Waldeck habang patuloy na humahampas ang mga alon sa dalampasigan ng isla ng Kalikuan.
They're talking of putting some kind of legacy plaque or something along the beach here somewhere.
Katulad ng malaking naitulong ng Australianong si Rodney Waldeck sa larangan ng surfing sa isla ng Kalikuan, hindi pa rin maitatago ang bakas ng nakalipas sa itinuturing na largest airstrip in the Far East panahon ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig.
Sabi nga ng isang account, second to Clark, Giwan has the finest airstrip in the Philippines.
During the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, we invited her to Giwan and she saw the potential and I showed him the airport and that's why she rehabilitated it.
Sa katunayan, naging malaking saksi ang paliparan ng Giwan sa isla ng Kalikuan sa makasaysayang pagbabalik ng 3 Balangiga Bells mula sa Timog Korea at Estados Unidos patungo sa Pilipinas matapos ang 117 taon. Mula sa Villamor Air Base sa Pasay City, dumating ang 3 makasaysayang kampana sa paliparan ng Giwan, lula ng Philippine Air Force C-130 Hercules at saka dinala sa sentro ng bayan ng Balangiga sa Eastern Samar.
The 3 bells of Balangiga, taken 117 years ago, are back to their home.
You know, the bells are returned, and it was really because of the fervent prayers of the entire Filipino nation.
Bukod sa malaking papel na ginampanan ng paliparan ng Giwan sa pagbabalik ng 3 makasaysayang Balangiga Bells, ang mismong paliparang ito ang nagsilbing pangunahing dagsaan o naging Samar Island Hub para sa Super Typhoon Yolanda relief operations halos 9 na taon na ang nakararaan. At nang may mga sumunod pang relief operations mula sa United States Agency International Development o USAID, may Amerikanong sundalong dumalaw sa alkalde ng bayan ng Giwan.
Sumakay ng mga eroplano yung mga Navy pumunta sa Giwan. He told me that Giwan is a very important place to me because my father was here during the Second World War and he had all the best words for the people of Giwan.
Tila hindi matapos-tapos ang pagdagsa ng mga alaalang nabuo mula nang magsimula ring mabuo ang tinaguriang largest airstrip in the Far East sa isla ng Kalikuan sa bayan ng Giwan noong panahon ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig. Subalit,
yung old airstrip was rehabilitated during the time of President Arroyo and was briefly used as a airport for commercial plane from Cebu-Giwan direct flight. And then it got stopped.
Well, it is operational. No? The Giwan Airport is operational, but the problem is not a single commercial airline wants to fly there because there is no traffic. There are no enough passengers. Nalulugi lang sila, malulugi sila.
Airport namin nagagamit, ang wala na lang aeroplano because there's no traffic yet.
So unless Giwan and its neighboring towns are developed into a tourist destination, commercial hub, industrial hub, etc., so that there will be enough traffic, that's the time that I think commercial airlines will fly there.
I'm really looking forward to that day na magkakaroon na ng flight dito.
Minsan sa isang magulong bahagi ng panahon, sa isang hindi inaasang pagkakataon, ang nooy payak at payapang isla ng Kalikuan at ang iba pang mga isla sa bayan ng Giwan ay nagsilbing paliparan sa madilim na kabanata ng ating kasaysayan.
I think that's the role of the Giwan base in the liberation of the Philippines. So because of our being the base of operations for General MacArthur and a launch pad for the attack in Formosa and in Manila.
Marami ang nag-aabang at umaasang matigil na ang paglipad ng mga eroplanong lumalaban sa digmaan because this could mean the war was nearing its end and the fight was almost over. When the smoke and ashes were almost settled, no more cracks and snaps from bullets and guns. When the skies were almost cleared from furious warplanes, no more frightful booms of distant bombs. When the runways were almost empty, no more battles to be fought for liberty. It was then when all the armies had to retreat, leave the battleground, and bid goodbye to the island of Kalikuan. Simply armed with grieving pain and dark memories of war, they now had to make the final takeoff.
Magandang Gabi Pilipinas. Magandang Gabi Pilipinas.
This is siguro one of the stories that is not really well known, no? It's not in our history books. It's a very heartwarming story of how really the Filipinos are welcoming. We are a welcoming people.
Taong 1917, sumiklap ang matindi at malawakang revolusyon sa bansang Russia nang mabigong tugunan ang problema sa gutom at kahirapan sa ilalim ng kapangyarihan ng Emperor na si Tsar Nicholas II. Sa pangunguna ni Vladimir Lenin ng radical socialist na Bolsheviks, napabagsak ang monarkiya ng bansa at winakasan ang mahigit 3 siglong pamumuno ng Romanov dynasty.
The Bolsheviks defeated the Imperial Army, and then they assassinated or murdered the Tsar and his family.
Matapos mapabagsak ang provisional government ng bansang Russia, itinatag sa bansang ito ang kauna-unahang communist state sa mundo.
White Russians was a term used to to designate all the Russians who were opposed to the Bolshevik Revolution spearheaded by Lenin.
The White Army, the people who were loyal to the Tsar, or people who were anti-communist, or the whites, had to flee because they were afraid of persecution or death or to be sent to labor camps. So silang mga white or mga anti-communist fled to many other places. Majority of them went to China because China is very close to Russia.
Subalit hindi rin nagtagal sa China ang lumikas na White Russians doon dahil ito ay naging komunistang bansa sa ilalim ng pamumuno ng Pangulo nitong si Mao Zedong.
Shanghai at the time was labeled as a symbol of Western capitalist decadence. And culturally speaking, Mao Zedong was quite keen to sort of eradicate this inheritance from the past. In that course, at the eve of the entry of the Mao Zedong Red Army into Shanghai, these people were not going to be able to live peacefully under this regime.
They had to flee again because they were afraid to be sent back to Russia so they didn't want to go back to Russia, so they had to escape again.
Sa paglisan ng White Russians mula sa kanilang bansa, nakatuon at tumutulong sa kanila ang International Refugee Organization o IRO.
So the IRO helped out these Russians to look for a place to escape to. So nagsulat sila sa maraming free countries. Sulat sila sa Australia, New Zealand, other countries, lahat ng mga bansang malalaya.
Sa lahat ng malalayang bansang binigyan ng mga pakiusap at panawagan ng International Refugee Organization na kupkupin ang libo-libong White Russians, tanging isang bansa lamang ang tumugon sa mga ito.
It was only the Philippines in December of 1948 through President Elpidio Quirino, who said, yes, okay, we'll accept 6,000 refugees to come to the Philippines.
Sa mga panahong nagpasya ang pamahalaan ni Pangulong Elpidio Quirino na bigyan ng pansamantalang tahanan ang White Russians, nagsisimula palang bumangon ang Pilipinas noon dahil sa sinapit nito mula sa ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig.
Nonetheless, President Quirino put an act on the table and said, we Philippines will accept these people.
And he said, okay, come in, and then we'll put you in this old naval base in the Pacific area.
At ang tinutukoy na dating naval base ng mga Amerikano, matatagpuan sa bayan ng Giwan sa lalawigan ng Eastern Samar. Ito ay ang isla ng Tubabaw.
6,000 refugees were settled in Tubabaw Island, and it was an episode which we call the Tiempo Ruso locally. So here in Giwan, we call it Tiempo Ruso, or the time of the Russians. So that's from 1949 to 1953.
Well, it shows again how hospitable Eastern Samarinos are.
Dito na nagsimula ang malaking papel na ginampanan ng isla ng Tubabaw sa kasaysayan ng bansa at ng buong mundo. Ngunit dahil iilan lamang ang nakakaalam nito at ang naging buhay ng tinatawag na White Russians sa islang ito sa bayan ng Giwan.
So naging mayor ako sa internet. On Tubabaw Island, I posted that I am the mayor of Giwan. I would like to get in touch with the White Russians who were in Tubabaw Island. I didn't even know when. In less than 24 hours, ang daming pumasok. Ang daming pumasok. We were there in Giwan. I was only 9 years old, blah, blah, blah. And it all started there.
Dahil na rin sa pakikipag-ugnayan sa mga nabubuhay pang White Russians at sa kanilang mga kamag-anak sa Australia, Amerika at iba pang panig ng mundo, nabuo ang documentary film na Tubabaw Odyssey, Refuge in the Philippines.
When you think about it, they lived in Russia and then they moved to China, and they had already lived there for 25 years or more. And then they had to be uprooted again. And here they were living on an island where they didn't know, is this going to be the rest of our life, or what's going to be the next step?
They were all Russian speaking, they were culturally Russian, but my goodness, we had Ukrainians, we had Estonians, we had Jews, we had Gypsies.
Tartar from Crimea, Latvians.
There were also some Armenians and Georgians.
Czech, Poles, Hungarians.
We even had one family of Hindus.
Hindi nagtagal, bumuo at nagkaroon na ng sariling pamayanan ang libo-libong White Russians sa isla ng Tubabaw.
I would say it was very well organized because everybody had a job over there.
Most of the stuff was taken care of by our own people. Engineers who rigged up a couple of motors and provided lighting for the entire camp.
My father became a policeman, and all the teenagers like my age, 15, we had assignment to take care of small children.
My uncle, he was advanced engineering group that came to Tubabaw in January, and they built a dam for our water supply.
My dad was assigned to go on the water truck. There were about 3 or 4 guys. They would go wherever it was that they got the water, and then they bring it back and they deliver it to the kitchen, you know, that kind of thing. So we couldn't really waste a lot of water.
Almost all the ladies who were capable worked in the kitchen, which was up on the hill, so you would see these ladies going up. So they had actual shifts when they had to work.
But every 10 days or every 2 weeks, we had to go out there and prepare meals for the district. You know, we had about 14 districts, I lived in the 3rd. We set up our own little city of 4,000 people. We had a hospital with nurses and doctors.
A church was constructed out near the oval, far out from camp, which was the main support or cathedral. There were other churches there as well. One was in a tent, I recall, was a Baptist. There were several denominations, but the main one was the Russian Orthodox. They would go to church every Sunday. Some people would go to church every day. The people were very religious, yes.
And then they opened up a school there. So all the children went there, and all the best teachers, taught us.
There was an Irish school and there was a Russian school. There was an orphanage that came with the Russians.
One of the significance of Tubabaw Island, the Tubabaw Island episode, or the sojourn of the White Russians to Tubabaw, is that there was an exchange of culture. Some of the artists, musicians, dancers who trained very well in Moscow Conservatory of Music and Art taught piano lessons, they taught ballet, they taught even singing and even painting to the children of the rich children of Giwan, received art lessons, music lessons from the refugees.
Nasa Katlong Baitang ako ng babang paaralan nang mag-aral ako ng piano kay Professor Walter, isang Russian refugee. Bawat leksyon, 1 oras, 5 piso ang bayad sa kanya.
My piano teacher, when I was very young, was taught by a Tubabaw refugee, but I didn't know that. And probably, perhaps, many of my generation didn't know that their teachers in art or music were taught by refugees.
I enjoyed the stage very much, so I was always on stage, either dancing or acting or something.
We had movies twice a week, almost every week. We had our own dance band and dances and all that. We could go and swim in the ocean every day, and they actually set up some facilities out there where you could swim. It was like a wooden raft. You could just sit out there in the middle and jump in the water.
You have within the community all the acts which characterize a human society. There were some poets, there were some intellectuals, there were some manual laborers. They were all kind of walk of life. Some of them were falling sick, some were falling in love.
Minsan na ring dumalaw ang nooy pinuno ng bansa na si Pangulong Elpidio Quirino.
President Elpidio Quirino came to the camp and the band met him with nice music.
It was President Quirino and according to them, his daughter.
I remember that we had an artist over there that made like a thank you memorial with all the signatures of different group people as a thank you for him. And the president decided to take down the fences, and that was meaning that you're not in the camp.
Minsan na ring tinangkang ilipat ang White Russians mula sa Tubabaw Island papuntang Tacloban City. Subalit ibinalik din sila sa isla. Sa kabila nito, ginagawan pa rin ang paraan upang magkaroon na ng permanenteng tahanan ang mga refugee.
the act that President Quirino opposed through an agreement with the International Refugee Organization, say, look, we can accept them. In exchange, IRO, please help us to find the durable solution to the plight of these refugees.
Naisulong naman ang panawagang ito ni Pangulong Quirino sa pamamagitan ng International Refugee Organization, katuwang ang mga bansang katulad ng France, Belgium, Canada, Argentina, Paraguay, Australia at Estados Unidos. Subalit,
first difficulty was the fact that the major resettlement instrument which existed within the arsenal of law in the United States, the Displaced Person Act, was outdated. For instance, prohibited persons who came from countries who were deemed as unfriendly to the United States to be resettled. So, White Russians were technically, from a nationality point of view, were coming from Russia. So therefore, at the beginning, they were not eligible for resettlement.
Sa pagkakataong ito, gumawa ng paraan ang kilalang religious leader na tumira sa isla ng Tubabaw sa loob ng 3 buwan na si St. John of Shanghai.
St. John, he actually left Tubabaw, went to America, and he prayed on the steps of Congress.
And literally sat on the steps till they would hear him.
Hindi nagtagal, napansin din ang panawagan ni St. John na payagang manirahan ang White Russians sa Amerika.
Senator Nolan arrived at the camp in November of 1949, and he gave promises that people can actually enter the United States of America through the Displaced Persons Bill.
Isang taon ang nakalipas, ipinasa ang kinailangang pagbabago sa Displaced Persons Bill at taong 1951, tinupad ni Senator Nolan ang kanilang pangako at dito na nagsimulang maglayag ang White Russians lula ng SS Marine Jumper patungo sa kanilang permanenteng tahanan sa Estados Unidos at sa ibang mga bansa.
Towards the end, some of them migrated to South America, including Argentina, Paraguay,
Santo Domingo, but also Germany, Belgium. France had the particularity towards the end to say all the woman-headed household with patients who were suffering from tuberculosis would be accepted by France.
and the able-bodied men went to.
We disembarked in Sydney, whilst others continued on to Uruguay and so on, South America.
We're glad we're leaving and finally going someplace where we're going to settle down. But on the other hand, we didn't know when are we going to meet again, Of course, I missed it.
Pitumpung taon na ang nakalilipas, buhay na buhay pa rin ang alaala ng White Russians sa mga naninirahan sa isla ng Tubabaw ngayon.
May tindahan ng akong mga kag-anak sa bukid. Inatnan ng aga od to gabi. Hanggatod na kami ng kag-anak dito kay may tindahan ni Era. Oo, mga Russian. At siya namamalit ng mga Russian.
Yung mga Russian nga ang ano nila itong dila nga brokit nga haluag nga pinag-anuhan ng manok, di ba? Nakakita ko yan ba international itbida nira.
Sa kasalukuyan, ang isla ng Tubabaw ay binubuo ng 5 barangay: Kamparang, San Pedro, Trinidad, San Juan at San Antonio. Ang barangay Kamparang ang pinakasentro ng isla.
Mayroong simbahan, barangay hall, daycare center, health station, mayroong elementary school, mayroong national high school, mayroon din covered court na naglalaroan. May sementeryo din.
Sa mismong barangay Kamparang din nanirahan ang White Russians at ang krus na ito kung saan nakatayo ang isang simbahan noon ang tanging konkretong saksi sa naging buhay ng mga refugee na kinalinga ng isla ng Tubabaw.
Even if they were young at that time, they understood what it meant for someone like President Quirino to save their lives. So they tell it to their children and their children's children. And even to this day, they're very, very grateful.
These Russians in Australia, they want to meet one of the ears of Elpidio Quirino because they want to say thank you. Because all these years, they've been waiting for people who will look for them. Because I was the first one who looked for them. Walang iba. Kaya they were crying because for so many years, here, may dumating dito na taga-Giwan na naghahanap sa amin.
The whole Russian community in Tubaba owes tremendous thanks to President Corina.
Well, I'd like to thank him for letting us spend time in the Philippines.
Thank you for them to give us a place to stay.
I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful to the Philippine people. And there's lots of good things and lots of bad things, but we persevered.
At bilang pag-alala sa pagiging malaking bahagi ng isla ng Tubabaw sa kasaysayan, itinayo ang marker na ito na sumisimbolo sa naging ugnayan sa pagitan ng White Russians at mga Pilipino. Taong 2019, ginunita ng lokal na pamahalaan ng Giwan ang ika-70 anibersaryo ng ugnayang ito.
The ties between the Russians and Filipinos forged during their stay in the Philippines.
Dear Tubabawans, thank you so much once again for your kindness. Believe me, please, for us Russians, it's natural to be grateful.
The significance of us accepting them, the Philippines accepting the refugees coming from China. First, it was the first international humanitarian assistance that the Philippines gave as a new republic. So that's the first. We have collaborated with the United Nations formally to set up a refugee camp, which I suppose became a learning lesson for the next assistance we gave to other waves of refugees.
We were just recovering from war and tinanggap natin yung 6,500 White Russians to the Philippines. Isn't that napakagandang gesture of friendship, gesture of kindness and generosity?
Their stay there was very brief, but still, we accommodated them, we embraced them because they were being persecuted at the time.
However we see it, there are no victors in war, only victims. And a newly established republic in the Far East opened its arms and gave refuge to more than 6,000 victims fleeing war and chaos. Underneath the rubbles and ravages of hopelessness and homelessness, there unearthed a gesture of kindness and compassion by the Filipinos known as the heart of war.
Landmarks including the landing of Magellan in Humonhon, the refugee camp in Tubabao, the World War II site in Caloocan Island. So all of these things add to the beauty and the attractiveness of Giwan.
Higit pa sa likas na yaman at kasaganahan ng mga islang ito ng Humonhon, Caloocan at Tubabaw sa bayan ng Giwan, lalawigan ng Eastern Samar, ay ang magagandang pangyayaring tumatak sa kasaysayan at ang naipakita at naipadamang kabutihan sa sanlibutan. True enough, it's history retold, humanity restored.
Magandang Gabi Pilipinas!
Hanggang sa muli, maraming salamat. Ako po si Ceasar Soriano at ito ang Magandang Gabi Pilipinas.